Going on YouTube, Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be going over some of the best and common teams that you're going to be expected to see in the upcoming Pittsburgh Regionals, right? So now begins some of our videos where, again, we're just going to be giving you as much help and information as we can to help you just prep for your Pittsburgh Regionals, because I've been getting a lot of questions like, what can I expect, going into this regional, right? So we already had the World Championships. They've come and gone. We've just had the Victory Road Challenge. That's come and gone. And we've had some, online tournaments since post-Worlds, just to, continue to explore the format. And now what we have here is a relatively concrete list as to, what we do expect to see and what are some of the best teams just in general that have the best and consistent results altogether. And we're going to go through some of them, so this way you'll be better prepared, or at least develop a game plan, so this way you can combat these teams just in case you're not ready altogether as of this moment. All right. So without further ado, let's go ahead and go into the first archetype. Okay, we'll start here, and I feel like we always have to start here. This is probably the most common hyper offensive team running around, and that's the one revolving around Hisuian Arcanine. So we call this the Hirofumi 6 because not only does it have the Hisuian Arcanine with the Choice Band, but it also has the Calm Mind Flutter Mane set over here. And you're not necessarily going to see the Calm Mind Flutter Mane necessarily. Like, you'll see the same 6, but some players are probably going to change things up a bit, right? Now Hirofumi had the Life Orb on his Chien-Pao. Some people actually don't like the Life Orb on the Chien-Pao. Some people prefer the Focus Sash. Either way, you're still going to see this 6, and this is probably the standard 6 that I would start to prepare for. Like, what are you going to do against, Chien-Pao and Tornadus? What are you going to do against Chien-Pao and Urshifu? What are you going to do against, Tornadus Arcanine? And then you still have to worry about, like Flutter Mane and Rillaboom in the lead, or even in the back, right? So this is the standard idea. Okay, of course, you're going to get Fake Out plus Surging Strikes Pressure. You have the Intimidate support from the Arcanine, and now you get the damage from the Choice Band as well. And then at the same time, you have Life Orb Chien-Pao breathing down your neck with Life Orb Icicle Crashes, or Focus Sash for that matter. And then this Urshifu can have a multiple types of sets here. This one is Mystic Water with Surging Strikes and Aqua Jet. Some people have even forgone the Aqua Jet or even the fighting move and gone for something like Taunt or Swords Dance. Either way, you're still going to see this 6. It's the most common 6. And just to show you, it's not necessarily have to be Hirofumi 6. We can go back here and just pick another, set of 6 that we've also explored. So this one has the Rillaboom and the Urshifu are more or less the same. This Flutter Mane is Choice Specs, so no Calm Mind over here with Protect. This Chien-Pao is Focus Sash here. Makes a lot of sense. And then this Arcanine is still Choice Band, but this Tornadus is Sky Plate here. Now, Sky Plate is starting to come a little bit more, especially on those Flutter Mane Chi-Yu ideas, but Sky Plate Tornadus does a bit of damage, but you might even see like Citrus Berry, Covert Cloak, Rocky Helmet on this Tornadus. Either way, you're still going to see the same 6, what I call the Arcanine Hyper Offense. It's pretty much replaced the Dragonite. Dragonite has fallen quite a bit, in the recent weeks, especially post-Worlds, just because you're getting a little bit more value out of Arcanine and or Landorus, right? But that being said, Dragonite's still pretty good. And here's one that does have the Dragonite. So here's Dragonite Chien-Pao, of course. You're still going to see this. So expect to play against, this Fire, Water, Grass, Scarf, Heatran, Urshifu, Rillaboom. Then you have Dragonite Chien-Pao. And of course, you just slap on a Flutter Mane, and then you're just kind of chilling, right? So more or less kind of the same way in terms of like playstyle. But of course, there's some differences. You have a Heatran instead of an Arcanine, physical versus a special attacker. Either way, you still have that fire type in the slot, for your Fire, Water, Grass core. And then if we just look at another type here, this one has the Landorus as opposed to the Arcanine or the Dragonite. And then still you have this, Urshifu, with Fake Out Pressure from the Iron Dancer. There's no Rillaboom here. Instead, there's an Amogus. So you have to deal with that, especially if they have a Rocky Helmet here. This one doesn't. This one is Citrus Berry. But either way, be expected to see this. This is also another successful way of playing this. And I call this like Landorus Chien-Pao, Lando-Pao, as I like to call it. Lando-Pao, we'll call that an archetype. But, basically some form of Chien-Pao team, right? Whether it's like Tornadus Urshifu with Arcanine, or, replace that, throw in a Dragonite there, then you have Pao Knight, or you have this kind of idea with like Lando-Pao. So as long as you have something to be able to deal with this type of archetype, then you're okay. But this will be the most common way, or I should say most common archetype in that Pittsburgh Regional. Some type of Pao Knight hyper offense. Next up, let's look at some of the weather teams. And of course, this will be the premier rain team that you're going to see. There's two types of premier rain teams that you're going to see, and this is the most latest rendition of it. So it's this a concept of like Pelipper, Urshifu, with Urshifu doing a lot more damage in the rain. And then following that, you have this defensive backbone of Iron Hands and Amoonguss, right? So you have Fake Out Pressure, you have Redirection Support, you have Spore Pressure, and then at the same time, you have a lot more damage coming out from Gholdengo and Chien-Pao. And Gholdengo really likes the rain as well, along with the Tailwind support from the Pelipper, because, Gholdengo wants to be able to set up nasty plot behind the Amoonguss, likes to be able to go first with the Tailwind support. And then at the same time, Make It Rain just does so much damage, and it's really good into Dragonite, Chien-Pao in general. So definitely bring that if you're going against that type of matchup. But then at the same time, you have Chien-Pao here, making the Urshifu do a lot of damage. So sometimes you don't even have to bring the Pelipper. Like Urshifu, Chien-Pao is also very, very much acceptable with any of these two or the three in the back. So, go with that with what you will. But definitely if you're going against like Sun teams, you definitely want to bring Pelipper, just to be able to remove their rain, especially if it's like Sunny Day Tornadus, just to be able to remove the Sunny Day in that sense. But this is one of the rain teams. The other one is, of course, the older rendition of the rain team, which is still like very, very strong even right now. And that was the Thunderous Rain with like Fluttermane and Hisuian Goodra. So basically, again, the whole idea is Thunderous is doing a whole lot of damage in the rain because while Bolt Storm is accurate in the rain, you're going to get Paralysis. The Pelipper is going to give you Helping Hand. It's going to give you Hurricane. It's going to give you Tailwind support. No Wide Guard here. You can go for the Wide Guard if you want. But here's your Amoonguss back engine, and this is like Basculegion Rain. This is pretty much what we call it, Basculegion Rain, because again, the Thunderous, with Volt Absorb is able to support the Pelipper and the Basculegion because, both of these don't want to be taking electric attacks, from an Iron Hands. So they can just swap in the Thunderous at that point, and then you soak up the electric attack. And then from there, you have Hisuian Goodra, with the Shelter Body Press plays, of course, Heavy Slam to be able to snipe opposing Fluttermane. So speaking of Fluttermane, here's your own Fluttermane. So be expected to handle rain. These are the two premier rain teams. So, if you weren't informed of that, now you are. Next archetype that you're going to be expected to see is like some sort of Zapdos balance. And this one in particular is the Zapdos Landorus idea, with Landorus supporting the Zapdos with Intimidate support. And then at the same time, if the user wished, they could have even ran Earthquake here, but there is a Rillaboom here. But basically, it's Zapdos with a Fire Water Grass Core, slap on a Fluttermane, and in this slot is the flexible one. We use Tornadus. The one that has been most successful so far has been the Landorus idea because you're getting Intimidate support. But, Fake Out Pressure, Surging Strikes, we already know what this can do. And then you have Zapdos and Fluttermane, dealing special attack damage. Good speed control, with Icy Wind, supposedly. And then at the same time, you even have Tailwind from the Zapdos. Rocky Helmet and Static is a great combination against stuff like Chien-Pao and Urshifu because they don't want to be taking, Rocky Helmet damage. And then at the same time, the Paralysis is not so great to be able to deal with. So this is one way of dealing with the one variation of Zapdos balance. Then the seniors winning team from the World Championships. This is the Zapdos Sylveon concept along with Gastrodon and Hisuian Arcanine. So and then at the same time it's Dark Urshifu here. So basically Sylveon, a very, very strong and bulky side of Fluttermane because again base HP 95, defense still not so great but still better than Fluttermane. You're a little bit slower, but with Pixie Plate and Hyper Voice, you're doing a lot of good spread damage. And then Hyper Beam, of course, right? Just a very, very strong single target move there, especially with Pixelate. Then, of course, Hisuian Arcanine with the Gastrodon here. Very, very good combination because, Arcanine is 4 times weak to water. Gastrodon can help you deal with opposing Urshifu. Then you have this idea of Yawn, to force the opponents to switch out or, go to sleep. So you might get some repositional play and force them out of position. So that's one good use of Gastrodon here. And then at the same time, again, Roost and Tailwind, you get speed control, you get longevity, from your Zapdos. And then Rillaboom here is just a great support here. Another good grass type to run your Fire Water Grass Core with Gastrodon and Arcanine here. So this is one one rendition, again, of Zapdos be expected to see. Of course, it won the World Championships, from the seniors division, so you might as well watch out for it. Then you have this Baxcalibur Zapdos idea, Back Zap, as I like to call it. Okay, with Baxcalibur, with ice coverage dealing a lot of damage into the fairies, forcing, potential Terras to be able to dodge that. And then at the same time, you know, Glaive Rush just does so much damage in general. Base 120 Dragon type move, 100% accurate, almost no drawback with that. Then you have this concept of like Amoonguss Goldango yet again, you know, redirecting and clicking Make It Rain. Zapdos also can reposition here with the Volt Switch concept. There's no Tailwind here, but that's okay. You can be expected to see Tailwind on the Zapdos in this case. And then, of course, Heatran here. And here, again, is your Fire, Water, Grass Core with like Urshifu, Amoonguss, and Heatran. Some Heatran sets have Magma Storm, you know, which will trap you and keep dealing damage. Of course, the accuracy is painful. Some Heatrans will also be expected to run Heavy Slam, because sometimes Flash Cannon doesn't really pick up the KO on the Fluttermane, because Fluttermane's special defense is extremely high. So Heavy Slam on the Heatran has been seen a little bit in some online ladder play, as well as some online tournaments. But, you know, because you have Make It Rain here, maybe you may not be able to see the Steel move on the Heatran in that case, right? But again, back to Zapdos, is just another variation of Zapdos balance that you're going to be expected to see. Okay, what about Cresselia, Ursaluna? What about the Trick Room stuff? Yeah, this is the premier one that you're going to be seeing. Federico's Cresselia, Ursaluna archetype. Basically, it's Cress Ursaluna, of course, you know, with Trick Room and Ally Switch as the two moves to be able to help you in terms of positioning. Then the Ursaluna has Swords Dance. Of course, that's going to be able to handle Intimidates that you want to be using against Ursaluna. And of course, you know, you just have like hard-hitting facades from there. Dragonite is here. You know, Choice Band Dragonite. No Chien-Pao here, but it's still doing a lot of damage in general. Ice Spinner from Dragonite does a lot of damage. It's still able to remove terrains. Fluttermane with Icy Wind, you know, good speed control there. And then Urshifu and then Iron Hands rounded out here. And Iron Hands is really good here on this kind of archetype. I always like to say, if you want to do Crest Ursaluna, you got to almost immediately slap on an Iron Hands and build with this 3-man core and then support from there. And in this case, Federico chose Fluttermane and Dragonite along with Urshifu here. And then this is single target Urshifu. So again, Dark Urshifu, which started to rise quite a bit within the World Championship. So I do expect that to be the same case heading into Pittsburgh as well. But the other way of running Cresselia Ursaluna is just a little bit more of the balanced way, where you don't have the Dragonite, but you still have this Amoonguss here supporting with redirection, and then, you know, just a Trick Room Abuser with Spore Pressure, redirecting things, especially helping the Fluttermane stay alive. And then at the same time, you just have Heatran here, which again, Heatran Cresselia has always been a very, very good tandem there, especially with Ally Switch being able to help the Heatran dodge a ground move without having to burn your Terra. But again, Cresselia Ursaluna, so, you know, get your substitute Fluttermanes ready, get your Amoongusses ready. That's, again, these are just like two common ways to be able to deal with it. You know, get your Intimidates against the Ursaluna and Iron Hands ready. Get your Dark type moves ready for Cresselia. Force that Terra Fairy at the same time. So be prepared. Get your taunts ready. Deny the Trick Room. Deny the Swords Dance. Deny the Amoonguss. All in all, you know, just have your tools ready to be able to deal with the Trick Room idea of Cresselia Ursaluna. Sticking within the Trick Room archetype, the other kind of Trick Room team that you're going to see is the, you know, the Indeedee Armarouge idea with like Lilligant, Torkoal as the secondary engine. But of course, follow me, Trick Room. The Armarouges, you know, they don't necessarily have this. Actually, a lot of them are starting to run like weakness policy stuff, along with, you know, could be Flash Fire, but also weak armor. So this way they have a fast mode to the team. I do expect to see some of that as well, and shows you. And then you still have this Ursaluna in the back that is your physical Trick Room sweeper. Hatterene is another one that can help you deal with some of the dark types running around, like the Roaring Moon team that's still running around, along with Chien-Pao at the same time. You know, Dazzling Game is just going to do so much damage. Psychic can snipe opposing Amoongusses. You outspeed it because you're very much a lot slower. And then at the same time, you have fast mode here with Lilligant Torkoal after you Eruption plays. Sometimes the opponent just has no answer here, especially if you're like Terra Ghost here. Fake Out's just not going to work. So you have that going for you. And then Choice Specs Torkoal if you have it, right? Some people like Charcoal would protect. Either way, you know, still Lilycole is still a threat. Of course, Sleep Powder is a pain in the butt to be able to deal with, but be expected to deal with this kind of idea. And, you know, Indeedee with the terrain is pretty much denying those priority moves. So unless you have your own Rillaboom to remove Indeedee's terrain, or you have Ice Spinner on your side, you know, have something for Psychic terrain. I know a lot of Chien-Paos are dropping Ice Spinner for Icicle Crashes, of course. So that just makes Indeedee stocks go through the roof. because now your only way to remove Psychic Terrain is to be able to swap in your Rillaboom. And I don't know how well Rillaboom wants to be able to deal with the Armouge here, along with, of course, the Torkoal stuff. So just be ready to be able to deal with this kind of Trick Room team. The other kind of hyper-offensive team that you're going to find is, of course, the Eric Rios variation with Tornadus, Regidrago, with Gholdengo and Farigiraf as the other two signature mons on the team. You start with Regidrago, Tornadus, Gholdengo. That's the building core there, and some players might even still rock with that. But the whole idea is, of course, Tailwind and click Dragon Energy. Then from there, Make It Rain and Dragon Energy. These are very, very hard moves to switch into, because the only thing that wants to switch into Dragon Energy is something like a Fluttermane, because you're a Fairy type. You don't take any damage from that. But then you're subjected to a Steel move from Make It Rain, right? So very, very difficult in terms of trying to be able to switch into that. But then also at the same time, be aware of like the Tornadus sets. Some of them have Icy Wind, some of them have like Rain Dance, some of them have Sunny Day, or just simply Taunt and Protect. Either way, be prepared for the different Tornadus sets. And then at the same time, the Trick Room, you might be able to get position around the Regidrago, but then if they just have Farigiraf here, they can just click Imprison Trick Room, and then the Farigiraf is somewhat hard to deal with because it's a little bit bulky, and then at the same time, the Rocky Helmet chip, in terms of like physical damage, you don't want to have to deal with that. But, this is, again, another one of those strong art types. Now, that being said, it's a little iffy. Sometimes Regidrago does well, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not saying this is like, an A tier Pokemon. It's actually more or less within the B/C tier. It only really does well when it's in Tailwind offense like Tornadus. But this art type in particular, this 6 has done well, especially if your name is Eric Rios. But I do expect to see some players be, acclimated and used to using Regidrago hyper offense. And I do expect it to do relatively decently, maybe at 1 top cut result, maybe even 2. That's really where it is and where it stands at the given moment. Dondozo. So we always ask this question, within Regulation D, is Dondozo still something that I need to respect? To me, the answer is always yes, okay? Because Dondozo is not as prevalent as it was in C and B and definitely A, but still it's around. And every time it's around, it still has, 1 or 2 top cut placements, which means it can still do relatively well. Even in the online tournaments, there still have been Dondozo teams that have either won or have had good top cut results, which means it still needs to be respected, right? And this idea with Dondozo Glamour has still been very, very consistent and very, very good. Order Up, Earthquake, Wave Crash is a very standard set, along with Unaware. Terra Grass has been a good option. Terra Dragon has also seen a little bit of a rise lately, especially with the Order Up damage. Then from there, the Tatsugiri can either be Scarf, can it be either be Citrus Berry. I've seen lots of different Tatsugiri sets, even Choice Specs. But the Glamora here, of course, being able to lead it, deal a lot of chip damage, and then cleaning up in the back with Dondozo Tatsugiri, that's also been something that you've been able to see. And really only Glamour has been good on these Dondozo teams as of late. So from there, then you add Tornadus. Now you have good speed control here. And then at the same time, with Sunny Day and Tailwind, now all of a sudden this Fluttermane Chi-Yu combination is just looking very, very strong. And you can even lead with these two and then have your Dondozo engine in the back. Go figure. What I also like to do is like lead Dondozo Fluttermane and have Chi-Yu Tatsugiri in the back, because now you have to make a guess. Does he swap in the Tatsugiri or does he swap in the Chi-Yu? And then from there, if they guess wrong, you can kind of almost just win right there from turn 1, just because you're doing so much damage, and also because your opponent guessed wrong in that sense, in terms of like trying to lead against multiple different engines, which is what this idea has here. So be prepared for Dondozo, for sure. But, in essence, you don't even have to see Dondozo, because you can still see Fluttermane, Chi-Yu, Glamora teams, but they might even just run like Double Genie or Tornadus Landers, and then, of course, the Dark Urshifu concept here, right? So still expect FlutterFish, as we like to call it, with some, Double Genie hyper offense, and then just remove Dondozo Tatsugiri altogether and just add something like Urshifu and Glamora over here, right? Makes a lot of sense. You get Intimidate support. You get just overall a little bit more better balance. You're not just completely relying on Dondozo Tatsugiri. This is just another way of utilizing this archetype, with Fluttermane and Chi-Yu here. Next up, we have Dragapult and Chien-Pao, and again, Farigiraf is the trailer of the duo. Now, again, the whole idea with Dragapult is that you are the fastest thing in the format, right? Now, we already know what Dragonite and Chien-Pao can give you, but like Dragapult, you outspeed Fluttermane, you outspeed Chien-Pao, and pretty much From here, you can do a huge amount of damage because you have the choice band here, and Dragon Dash just pretty much hits everything unless your name is Fluttermane. So that's going to do a lot of damage. And then you have Terra Blast, Terra Ghost, which is like a very, very hard-hitting move. Then you also have Phantom Force, again, just being able to, break through, protect, and of course, one turn of getting out of jail for free, dodging an attack potentially, and then just hitting them next turn can be very, very beneficial. And then with Chien-Pao giving you that nice little added boost, that also helps a lot. And then from here, you get Heatran and Rillaboom and then Fluttermane. Very steady, 2/3 of the Fire Water Grass core. Fluttermane is your main special attacker along with Heatran. And again, Ferrograph just helps you against, the Sucker Punch shenanigans that you want to click against Dragapult just because you are a ghost type, but Ferrograph can kind of help you against that. And then, of course, at the same time, deny, again, the Trick Room setup because you have Imprisoned Trick Room. So another balanced archetype, but this time it's Dragapult and Chien-Pao, and it's been performing relatively well on the online ladder tours, over the past month or so. And even though it didn't really get that top cut of, within the World Championships, like as far as like online tournaments are concerned, it's still very, very strong. It's still something that you have to respect in essence, right? So, I still put this at like the bottom half of the, the top 10 archetypes that you're going to expect to see within Pittsburgh. But again, it's still very, very good. That being said. All right, the trailer here. And again, this is the Neil, Jude, and Marco team. I always say those three because they're really the only team that's really been piloting this to its fullest potential here. And the whole idea is that you have Roaring Moon here, setting up a Dragon Dance, Fake Out potential along with redirection support to be able to enable that. And then Roaring Moon can just pretty much outspeed the entire format. And then having this dark typing is really good against something like Cresselia. And then you have just, Acrobatics after Booster Energy Boost is just doing so much damage, especially with Terra Flying. It just runs through a lot of different things. It gives you immunity into something like Ursaluna as far as like the ground typing is concerned, right? And then at the same time, just gives you an out as far as like, the surviving against the fairy weakness for that matter, as well as the fighting weakness, right? That's the whole benefit of Terra Flying. Then over here, again, the FlutterFish combination with Fluttermane and Chiyu doing a whole bunch of damage, especially if they have like specs or boost energy on the Fluttermane. It just does so much here. And then, your Amoonguss and Gyarados, they give you that defensive backbone that you're normally going to find on a lot of different teams. Not necessarily Gyarados, but like, again, Amoonguss plus something, it just helps you out there. And Gyarados is a really good Pokemon this format. We featured it a lot. On a couple of our teams, throughout the month of September. Speed control with Thunder Wave, taunt potential, and then again, a Waterfall, great against another fire type, great against Landorus, and then the Intimidate support that you're getting for the entire team is very, very valuable here. So low-key Gyarados is the glue that makes it all work here. You already know what you're getting with these two special attackers. And then Iron Hands, again, gives you that tape or that glue, along with Gyarados. Again, Fake Out potential, a strong physical attacker that can also function in the Trick Room, if you do go against that matchup. So very, very balanced team. It's, again, it was like used throughout Regulation C, and it's nice to see that it functions relatively well in Regulation D. And I always leave this one last, especially when we did this video before the World Championships, just because, you can see its potential, right? But it's just like, does someone really want to run this? Like, they might say, oh, there's no Regulation D mods, I'm not going to use it. But you don't necessarily need them, right? As long as you have the right tools to make a team work. And this is a perfect example of that. All right. So be expected to see this one. Okay, so if you made it this far in the video, this is what I call like the rogue team section. These are teams that are like not super meta. Not everyone is really using it, and they're not very common, but they still have success when they are used, right? So first example here is Amelia Forbes' team with Brambleghast. Not too many people are using this. But, when it is used, I always see it in, like, Top Cut, right? Especially in some of these online tours. You can definitely expect to see this, if you do win the lottery is what I'm saying, right? So, again, the whole function with Brambleghast is because of this Wind Rider ability. Great against Heatran, Heat Wave. Great when you click Tailwind, of course, you get a nice little speed control gimmick there. And then, just like having a good grass move is really good against Urshifu, great against Ursaluna. Shadow Sneak, also very, very good against sniping Fluttermanes. And then something like Strength Sap here, just great at like reducing stacks and then healing yourself, just because it's a very, very good countermeasure as far as like, a safety measure in terms of like a lot of different things. Now, Chi-Yu Fluttermane, again, we've seen this combination quite a bit throughout some of these teams. You already know what you're getting with Tornadus. And then, of course, you just round out the team with something like Urshifu, and then Goldengo, again, another Pokemon that does relatively well under the Tailwind archetype, right? So watch out for Brambleghast. Another one is the Articuno Snow teams. You know, these are always going to be around. You know, I always feel like there's, you know, in a tournament of like 100 players, there's always going to be that one guy that's going to be using Articuno, right? And he's going to end up top cutting because these are very, very good Pokemon, you know, especially under snow. And again, I wouldn't necessarily like recommend like this set or even like this team, but like just as far as like Articuno archetype with Bob Snow is concerned, and then just like a bunch of support options, like, you know, maybe even, you know, Iron Hands is pretty good, Heatran okay, maybe even like a Landorus on a team like this. But in general, just like Articuno is going to be a very, very good Pokemon. And I do expect it to be seen at pretty much every regional, depending on who the player is. And again, like I said, a rogue team. All right. Then next up, we have Joe's team, you know, again, with Wo-Chien and the Double Genie idea. You know, Thunderous Landorus is something that's not necessarily uncommon. It is used relatively well. It's very, very successful just because of the amount of utility that you get. You get Intimidate support, you get speed control, you get damage reduction, you get status infliction, right? Just a whole lot of things you can get from just 2 Pokemon alone. And then from here, you can worry about your damage with the other slots, right? Like Fluttermane, Urshifu, these are your 2 breakers. Heatran is also very, very good in certain matchups. And then again, Wo-Chien functions relatively well here in terms of like reducing physical attack damage. And then, you know, Snarl support along with the Tablets of Ruin, you know, you're just neutering a lot of damage and then allowing your big sweepers to do the job that they need to do, you know, just because things can't kill them because you have, you know, again, Eerie Impulse, Snarl, damage reduction, Intimidate. You know, it's hard to remove a lot of these things off the board. You know, Urshifu, again, you know, just being bulky altogether, with Mystic Waters just doing a whole bunch of damage, even though you are slower. And again, Choice Specs Fluttermane, like I said, what you can do here is just like kill, you know, use Thunder Wave and then Hex right from the get-go, just inflict a huge amount of damage, just remove something off the board, especially, you know, you have this Choice Specs here. You know, it's going to do a lot. Just overall, a really, really nice team that Joe came up with. And I've seen some people use this in online ladder tours, and they've done relatively well, right? So again, one of those rogue teams here. And I always got to give myself a shout out here. You know, we got to feature Clover Moltres at this point in the video, right? Again, this was Sebastian's rental code. You know, he took our 6 along with Renzo Navarro, made day 2 cut with it. So super glad about that once again. But I do expect at least 1 or 2 people to be able to use this rendition of Clover Moltres. You know, with the Landorus Amoonguss support along with Iron Hands, Ursh, and Fluttermane. I've seen the 6 throughout all these ladder tournaments, whether it's our early version of the team or whether it's this version of the team. Either way, I always see it. If I had to like pick 10 ladder tours, I would see it in maybe like 4 or 5 of them. So it's relatively common, and you know, I do expect it to see it. And newsflash, a little bit of secret, people have messaged me and saying, hey, I'm going to bring this team into the regional. You know, can you give me some pointers? So I already know it's going to be there. So, you know, moving forward, let's see, you know, if you are that lucky person to match up with it, make sure you have something for Moltres, right? Because it is a very, very good Pokemon in that sense. All right, folks, so there it is. There is our list on what we believe to be the strongest and common teams that you're going to be able to see in the Pittsburgh Regional. So hopefully I gave you a little bit of a sense as to what to expect and helped you out a little bit in terms of your team building and what to respect as far as options are concerned. And if this is something you need help with, if you're still struggling to get that last minute team that you need for the Pittsburgh Regionals, make sure you do some last minute coaching with me. You know, make sure to book a session with me on the channel. It's a tier 3 sub. You can find it in the video description. There is a link there, as well as in the comment section. There's a pinned link to be able to sub to the channel with that tier 3 sub. And then from there, you can message me on Discord, and then we can coordinate a time to meet and build you that team that you need, whether it be for that Pittsburgh Regional or some other regional later on, potentially. You know, Regulation E is, you know, already announced. Or if you just need something for like online ladder play or just some other online tournaments, you know, again, feel free to, again, still sign up. We will get you that team that you need for whatever reason that you need it for. All right. We'll be back with another video in the next one, guys. Peace out and have a good one.